Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of the Ascent Meridian Technology Center's live stream. I am Julie Griffin, and I'm one of the project managers here on our Workforce and Economic Development Division. And on the way into work this morning, it dawned on me that even though I've done these live streams for almost a year, I don't know that I've ever actually explained what Meridian does and the people that we serve. So I want to start with that because it's very relevant, obviously, to what we do and also who my guest is today. So first off, what we do at Meridian. Meridian is a part of the Oklahoma Career Tech system. It's a statewide system that's focused on career and technology training across the state. There are 29 technology centers, and we all serve our own districts. So Meridian is located in Stillwater, so we serve Stillwater and the surrounding communities. We have three main audiences that we serve, or clients that we serve, and those are on the full-time side. High school students attend full-time career training programs for half a day, either morning or afternoon, and that training follows the regular school calendar, like August through May. Our second audience is adult students who either attend full-time programs alongside those high school students, or they can opt to attend short-term programs that usually happen in the evening, sometimes on weekends, and those usually lead to certification or other credentials that help them advance their career. The third side, or the third client that we serve, is business and industry services, or workforce and economic development, and that's where I am housed. And so we specifically serve clients or companies in our district through either safety training or specific leadership training or some sort of customized training that they need. So those are the three client areas that we serve here at Meridian. So I know I haven't ever explained that. So if you've ever been curious about what we do, I hope that helps. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest for today. He is housed with me here in Workforce and Economic Development, actually just two offices that way. And his focus is on apprenticeships. And we are going to talk about how the apprenticeship program has evolved over the last 13 months and the impact that he is having on companies today. So without further ado, Joe Steele, welcome to the Ascent again.
Hello. How's it going, Julie?
It's going good. So if y'all have been around for a while, Joe was my first guest in March of 2023 when we started this. So I thought it was fitting to bring him back on. A lot has happened in the last 13 months regarding apprenticeships and career training. So if people don't remember who you are, Joe, why don't you just real quickly tell us who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump into the rest of it.
All right. My name is Joe Steele. I've worked at Meridian for 15 years, but a little less than 2 years in this role that is called the Apprenticeship Training Coordinator. And that's what I do now, is everything that revolves around what it takes to organize and communicate and establish apprenticeships from the team that we have here in this office of the Workforce and Economic Development Group. Consult with employers, identify potential apprentices, bring all the pieces of the puzzle together to establish an apprenticeship, whatever that looks like. It could be registered or not registered, or anywhere from 1 semester long to up to 5 years long in some cases. Everything apprenticeship related that Meridian is working with at this point.
Very good. And I want to pop up Rebecca's comment here real quick. We have the best job and love working with businesses throughout our district. Absolutely. And I don't think Joe and I will agree with that just because Rebecca's our boss, but we also mean it very much so. Absolutely. So I know when you started in this new role, you had a goal. What was your beginning goal for your apprenticeships?
Well, we really didn't know how hard it would be or how long it would take, and it was all new, and we'd heard a lot of things about how hard apprenticeships were to get started, and a lot of horror stories about timing, everything about it. So we didn't have a huge expectation. We just wanted to basically see what the needs were and identify some ways that we could serve our employers and some students that aren't traditionally able to attend a full-time training program like Julie described earlier. And so the goal was pretty vague, but when I was put in this position to kind of learn how to make it work and figure it out, we did say we were going to try to start something by August of 23, which was, not too long ago. And that would have given us a little over a year to get things set up and started. So we didn't have a huge goal up front, but we quickly learned that the response was good and maybe better than we expected. And it really met the needs that we were being told about, and so we were able to start quite a bit sooner than that, and it's taken off quite a bit faster than we expected, just because it fits. I mean, the timing is good. The employers need people now. We need to increase our capacity with what we can, with who and how we train, and like all the pieces. The timing was good. Like the timing was why it's mostly why it happened quicker than we expected. And I think Julie mentioned a little over a year ago we signed up our first registered apprenticeships in February of 23. So we've been at it for close to 2 years, but we've had official enrollments for just a little over a year now.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think it's incredible to me that all the pieces have fallen together, and that, number one, we have somebody, who's dedicated to apprenticeships, and also that just the timing of everything else and employers needing workers and everything has come together at just the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned increasing capacity. So why don't you dig into that a little bit more about how apprenticeships help companies increase their capacity?
Okay. And that's twofold. And when I'm talking capacity, that's capacity of what our existing resources can train in terms of numbers, and then increase capacity at employers who might be able to take on more employees to grow their business a little bit. So that capacity happens on both ends. And that's really where the initial conversation started, and why we took the direction of apprenticeships was our HVAC employers in the area. Mr. Snowden has been teaching here for I don't know 14, 15 years now, and has an amazing program, turning out great graduates every year. They're all getting jobs. Everything is going just as well as it could go with that program, except there's still the need for more. And the answer is not always just to like add to that program. Like that's a good program, and that's not always the obvious answer, because sometimes the need for more includes different. And that's where, like I said, the initial conversations had, what can we do different to help our employers train more people? And the apprenticeship model is what kind of rose to that thought process, because our employers were kind of doing this on their own anyway. I mean, they were hiring students out of our full-time program, but they were also hiring additional people without any training, and doing it on their own. Like there's several paths in every occupation. There's several paths to get to your goal. And we just found an additional path to complement what we were already doing well. And that's how the conversation started. They needed more people. We needed to train more people without without starting an additional program or all the things it would take to make the existing program bigger. So the apprenticeship model is more of a partnership with the employer, and that's probably the part I like about it most, because we get to listen to them. By definition, it's industry driven, so we hear what works for them, and we partner with that particular employer to help train their person the way they need them trained. So.
Very good. Very good. I know you mentioned HVAC. What are the training programs that we have apprenticeships established in currently?
Currently, we have aligned 4 United States Department of Labor registered apprenticeship programs with 4 current training programs we have in place at Meridian. That's HVAC, that's electrician, that is automotive collision repair, and automotive mechanic. Those are the 4 programs that we already had good programs in place, and had all the, had instructors and facilities and all the stuff we needed to support apprenticeships. So those are 4 of the 5. The 5th one is plumbing. And the reason we're venturing into plumbing, and we have sponsorship for that now, we don't have enrollments yet, but we will within the next few months. That is a program that is in high demand in our district. And several of our HVAC employers also do plumbing. And so when they saw the benefits of what we were doing with HVAC, that was a lot of their questions is, can we do this with plumbing as well? And the answer is yes, but it takes a little bit longer to start that because we're starting from scratch. So we are in the process now of putting together a plumbing program that'll meet only in the evenings with an adjunct instructor, and it's going to be a 2-night-a-week class to support a plumbing apprenticeship. So that's the 5th one for now. And the only reason we picked those 5 is that's where we felt like the most of the demand was at. We're close in some other areas. I think we might be taking on industrial technology or industrial maintenance for industrial maintenance techs. I mean, that's a kind of a high demand area, and we're really close to sponsorship in that occupation, and several. I mean, there's over 1,000 approved occupations that we could align.
Wow, that's a lot. And I love that the focus has been on, not just what we think would be fun and interesting and cool, but where the actual demand is for our companies and for the industry.
Absolutely.
Real quick, I want to say hi to Cody. Cody's watching, another Career Tech friend. Watching over on Facebook, we've got Chris. He's a friend of mine. And let this be a reminder, if you're watching, drop a comment. That's how we know you're here. Like, we have an eyeball that tells us people are watching, but we don't know if you don't comment. And then Ryan says, you were the best welding teacher.
No, thanks, Ryan. Ryan was a great welding student. So that's a good point. What Julie said a minute ago, we're not just doing what we think is cool and fun. We're doing where the demand is at. And when I started this, I just got done teaching welding for several years, and that was, in my mind, going to be one of our first apprenticeships. And we still are not doing apprenticeships with welding because that demand is higher in other areas. So as much as I want to, we keep kind of postponing that because we're just following the demand right now, just listening to our employers. And that's the bulk of my job is spent listening to what the needs are and figuring out how to help.
Yep. I love that. Another welding person here, Hunter McDaniel. He's one of our welding adjuncts. Hey, Hunter. Thanks for watching. So why don't you talk a little bit more about the listening part of your job? I know when you did your overview for our team not too long ago, you said, 30 to 50% of your time is spent listening. So what are some of those key things that you listen for employers either saying or not saying?
Just the pain points in their business. Like they're I learned like I mentioned before, I had a lot of ideas, and as I learned how to present ways to make this work, I had a lot of things that seemed like they made a lot of sense in my mind, and that's the kind of the direction we started because we didn't have any direction yet. And so sometimes what I thought was the best plan wasn't always what the employer thought was the best plan in terms of timing or commitment level, all the different things. So I just listened to find out what works for them, and then it may not be a registered apprenticeship what they need. It may not be an apprenticeship at all. It may just be a way of helping them connect with the way that we can serve them. So that's true, and that's one of the hardest parts of my job. Is because I'm kind of a doer, and I feel like I need to be like accomplishing something very often. And some of my days, I spend a lot of time just talking to people and communicating by email and just the different things to kind of learn more about them. And then once I've kind of gathered enough information, then we can start the doing part of putting a program together that will meet those needs. So yeah, a lot of time networking.
That's good. So I love Rebecca's comment, and this is actually where I was going next. Can you talk more about the benefits to employers in the apprentice and why this apprenticeship model is so beneficial?
We've only got 15 more minutes on this cast on this show, but I need a couple hours for that. The benefits are amazing. Like it just fits. The biggest ones I can think of so far is the timing of hiring in comparison to students coming out of full-time programs. Like right, we're kind of going into the spring. We just had spring break. This is when most of our traditional full-time students are wrapping up programs. So historically, this was about the only time of the year to hire students that are graduating full-time programs. So this opens the door to hiring year-round. Our programs are all, for the most part, open entry. And so when an employer has a need and identifies the person that they want to put in the training, we can start that almost any time. So that flexibility of start time in a organized training program is really good. The biggest benefit is we are we're working for them specifically. Like we're going to train, say collision repair technicians for 8 different shops. And for the most part, we're going to train them the same, but every shop is a little bit different, has their own little niche maybe. And so the apprenticeship training model, they have a mentor while they're at work, and then they have an instructor while they're at school, and the apprentice is learning from both of them. So it's really specific to their shops. We're going to cover all the bases with our instructor and get all the overview covered, but it feels really more like we're like assisting them with their own training instead of training them how we think they should be, how we want it done, and then handing them off. So it's a true partnership from the start. Sometimes it's up to 3 or 4 years we're with that apprentice till they're done, whether that means they test for a journeyman's license or they complete a ASE certification and the mechanics. So a lot of those certifications require on-the-job time as well. So sometimes a student isn't eligible to test for those higher level certifications with just school alone. It takes class time and work time, and the apprenticeship model obviously lines up well with that. So with HVAC and electrician, the end of their time is a journeyman test, and we're there with them right there until they're to practice for that test and study for that test right up to the end. So that's a couple of the big ones. There's a lot of funding available right now, and that's not why we do this, but it is an important component that helps employers to offset the costs of employing an apprentice, because if as an employer, if you could hire somebody that has all the skills that you need anytime you wanted to, that would be your first choice, but it's not the case anymore. So they're hiring people that don't have the ability or the skills to achieve everything they need to do. So that basically costs them a little bit of money, but it is an investment, and there's a lot of data that shows that a small investment into apprenticeship training has a pretty quick return. Like $1 invested returns like $1.45. There's a lot of data that supports all this, but there is funding that offsets some of those costs. So that's another part of my job is showing and helping employers see where and how to leverage some of that funding. And that is all external. That's through other agencies or other organizations, and I connect those dots to help them with that. So they can, even though they're hiring somebody without all the desired skills, they're getting reimbursed for some of those expenses along the way if they want to. And again, that's optional. We're just the training, and they're doing the employing, we're doing the training, and the partnership could end right there. But for some of our employers, they do seek those additional funds to help with that.
Okay, very good. I love that there's funding available, because even if companies don't want it, at least knowing that it's there, I think is good. What percentage of companies that you work with do you say take advantage of that funding versus don't?
I would say probably 70% are seeking at least part of the funding that's available. Cool. And some of the funding is very specific to support exactly what we're doing. So it's not, it lines up. Part of the criteria is full-time employment and being part of a registered apprenticeship program. That's the two criteria. So it lines up well.
Cool. On the employment side, so is this something that the employer finds the person that they want to hire and train, and then they come to you, or can an individual be like, hey, I want to be an apprentice in that field and come here? How does that work?
Yes and yes. I like to think of it as we are not a staffing agency. We're not an employment agency, but we also can make recommendations and referrals. So an apprentice can come from several different places. We have our marketing team has put together a great page on our website that has a list of approved employers that are currently part of the program. And so if we get a call from just somebody that's heard about apprenticeships and they called Meridian and said, what's my next step? Then, the first step of every apprenticeship is a full-time job. So if it's somebody that nobody knows, we can refer them to one of the about 30 or so approved employers that are already in our system, basically. And so they can seek employment with one of those companies and then become part of the program. The employers can send them directly to us. They can send somebody that's worked for them for any amount of time, or they can send a new hire if they want to. And then as students in our full-time programs are graduating or at any stage, really, I mean, they can transition from full-time if they've got the desire and the capacity to maintain a full-time job. They can switch over to the apprenticeship model instead of the full-time program if that's a good fit. And we're cautious with that because what we're doing with them is the way we've always done it, and it works. And so we don't encourage that, but we have had some scenarios where students, maybe financially we're not going to be able to complete a full-time program. This is sometimes a better option for them. So every scenario, they come from every direction at any time. The biggest thing about it is the flexibility and the timing of how we can enter and just make it work for that person at that time.
Very
One of
good.
the first things I learned with apprenticeship is if you've seen one apprenticeship, you've seen one apprenticeship. And that's pretty true because they're all a little bit different. They all come in at different stages. They have credit for what they've done leading up to that point. They're all, it's not black and white. It's a little bit different for almost every single one of them.
Gotcha. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I know you have a couple success stories that you like to share, and I think would be really fun to share with our audience. Maybe on the apprentice side, share a success story, and then on the employer side, share a success story.
Yeah, I always talk about Crystal Counselor, and I've got permission to talk about her a lot. Travis Snowden's HVAC program. Crystal is a lady from Ponca City that has a teenage son. And I won't get the story exactly right, but you'll get the gist of it. But she was working in a fast food industry in Ponca City. And I think somebody came in to work on some of their chilling equipment. And she asked a few questions and thought, that looks kind of fun. And what would it take to do this for a living? She asked a lot of the right questions, and they told her, what it entailed. So she applied for enrollment at Meridian. At the time, the program was full, and she was placed on a waiting list. But again, she's Ponca City, which is a pretty good ways away. We work closely with Pioneer Technology Center in Ponca City, but they at the time did not have a HVAC program, so this was her closest option. But raising a teenage son, single mom, working full time, just school is a big hurdle, right? And so we signed up a few apprentices the first week that we started. She was one of that first cohort that we started. So she was able to go back to work for a company, Ward's Heating and Air in Ponca City. And they took her on. They were one of our first approved employers, and that was one of our first enrollments, and she's doing super good. She just passed. I think she just took her journeyman's test, a week or 2 or 3 ago, and I'm sure she passed. I mean, she's done really well at everything she's done. I don't know for sure officially, but I mean, she has or she will pass that. So that's the cool part. That's why we do it. Is that's somebody that probably would not have been able to complete something like this in a traditional path, and so that's a big win. So she's doing well, and very appreciative of having this opportunity to come along. And I'm very appreciative of her because she's done so well, because she did everything like she's supposed to. And working for a company in the town she lives, that allowed her to go to work in her hometown and just come to us, 1 or 2 times a week instead of 5 times a week. So saved her money there and on travel and just all the different things.
That's awesome. I love that story because I think it really shows the difference that this program can make in somebody's lives. And that's what we're here for, is to have a positive impact on people's lives.
That's why we do it.
Yes, exactly. There is a QR code on screen. If you see right there, you can scan that. And it'll take you to the webpage on Meridian's website, so you can learn more about apprenticeships. I did see somebody scanned it already earlier, so that's exciting. When you scan it, it tells us. So thank you to whoever scanned that. Before you talk about your employer success story real quick, Cody asked, and I think this is a good thing to explain, the difference between a registered and non-registered apprenticeship program.
Most of that is that's a great question, Cody. I like that question, and There's a lot to it, but the biggest difference is it is registered means it's registered somewhere. In Oklahoma, the only option we currently have for registered apprenticeships is United States Department of Labor. Some states have their own state registered apprenticeships, and that can be something that's regulated at the state level. Oklahoma is not one of those states, so we adopt United States federal regulations if we choose to go the registered route. Non-registered is, I don't like the word. We're going to stop using the word, and I've used it a lot for the last 2 years, but I don't like non-registered because when I hear non anything, it makes me think it's less important or inferior. It's actually not. It just means that it's not as in-depth as a USDOL registered, and it's something that we can truly customize. And so the most success we've had with that level is through our industrial technology program, where we had some employers that were very interested in doing an apprenticeship or training somehow in that skill, but they did not have the desire to enter the long-term multi-year process. So we took a shortened version of that, and we could give them what we called non-registered in the amount of 1 semester. And so they got the training they needed on the apprenticeship model, where they were coming 6 hours a week to class and working the rest of their week at work, and it fit for them. So we do some of those when it's the best fit for the employer. So the state Department of Career Tech is working on some terminology in that area, and I think at some point we can call these Career Tech or Oklahoma Career Tech apprenticeships instead of non-registered apprenticeships. Great question.
Very good. Very good. We got like 2 more minutes left. So can you share your employer success story? I think I teased people on the event with the number 300%. So can you share about what that 300% means or represents?
It is. This was one of the employers in the HVAC. We talk a lot about HVAC because that's probably our heaviest enrollment right now. And it's a person that I've known for several years. And as I was communicating and learning about needs, he literally was a one-man show. He had one truck, and he was his only employee, and he did a lot of work. And what was limiting his growth of his business was just the cost. The cost of hiring another person, and he had enough work for himself and not quite enough work for more than himself. And so he actually took on an apprentice through this program and leveraged all of the funding that was available for him to do that. And that worked so well, and his business grew fast enough that he hired another journeyman and took on a second apprentice. And so that small company has went from 1 person to 4 people through this program. So 1 to 4 doesn't sound near as overwhelming as there's not as much wow factor from going from 1 to 4 as it is 300%, but it is very significant to him and that small business, because they've grown and they will continue to grow, because this has given them a path to achieve that, to be able to financially afford to do that. So that's pretty cool.
Awesome.
Several
Absolutely.
others have grown as well, but just not quite at that level of percentage.
Yeah. Well, and it's fun to say, like 300% increase.
Sounds good.
Yes, it does. And Cody, I agree. Your work is changing family trees, Joe. I think
Wow. Thanks,
Crystal would
Cody.
probably contribute. And another vote for Mr. Steele.
I paid all those guys to say something nice about me.
Nah, I don't believe it at all. So we are running up against our time. If anyone else has a question real quick, we would take one more in the comments. But otherwise, we've had 8 people scan that QR code, Joe. So that is super cool. I love that. Hopefully,
Absolutely the next step. I mean, that's the best place to start learning more, whether you're an employer, a potential apprentice, anything that you want to do. Holly works well with us in our office. She's handles a lot of the communication for us, and she's awesome to work with. She's been a big part of putting that page together that you can go to. So reach out. We want to talk. I'll talk about it as long as you want to talk about it. So reach out to me, and we'll visit some more.
Very good. Another comment, love how these programs exemplify the mission of securing economic futures. Absolutely. And I wish I knew who you were, Facebook user, but absolutely, I agree. It's Meridian's vision or mission. So Next month, which is Friday, May 3rd, I will be live once again at noon on the first Friday. My guest next month is Miss Amy Haar. Amy is one of our adjunct instructors that teaches a lot of leadership-based training classes, lunchtime learnings, things like that. If you've come to any lunchtime learning programs, you have probably met Amy. So mark your calendars for that. Cody's comment, any technology style programs coming for this program? Do you know what he means?
I think he probably means like technology programs. And yes, there's so many occupations, Cody. Like that's the fun part about this. If there's a need or a request, we can almost always find something that lines up close enough to make it work. So yeah, it's really unlimited. So many occupations are apprenticeable, and it's fun to see things that we don't traditionally think as apprentice type occupations, but we can align this. The model doesn't change. It's effective and it works well across several things. I think that's what his question was. If it's not,
Okay.
ask it again. Ask it again.
You know how to get a hold of us, Cody. You know how to get a Joe. So, all right. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Sarah, for being here and dropping comments. Thank you, Chris, for being here and dropping comments. And thank you, Taylor, for being here. We like working with you too. So take care, y'all. We will see you all next month. And if we can help you in the meantime, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Thanks.